Are you looking for a book series to read together as a family to spark the imagination and help you grow in your faith? I have just the book series for you.
Hey mamas, this is Playfully Faithful Parenting, and I'm your host, Joy Wendling. I'm a seminary grad and children's and family minister turned stay-at-home mom to my 5 girls. Spiritual parenting is my calling, and it's my passion to help other mamas disciple their kids using the power of play and their own authentic daily walk with Christ. If you're a mama who wants to introduce your kids to Jesus and watch as the Holy Spirit transforms their lives, this is the place for you. I'm so glad you're here. So let's dive in and see how we can partner with God today.
Hey Christian mamas, welcome to Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'm Joy, so grateful that you are here spending time with me for the sake of your children. I today want to share with you one of my favorite book series, and you've probably heard of it. You may have even read it, but if you have, I want to challenge you to go deeper with it, especially through play. So the book series I'm talking about is the Chronicles of Narnia. This is a single book of all 7 books, but this is a book by C.S. Lewis, and it is one of my favorites. I typically read this whole series every 1 to 2 years, usually by audiobook, and I just love the way that it has helped me to be playful with my faith and spark imagination in my in the way that I view God and who He is and what He has done for us. When my daughter, I believe when she just turned 8, my oldest, we started reading this together at night, and it took us 1 year. Our goal was to finish it by her next birthday. It took us 1 year to read through the entire series together, and we didn't read every night. And we didn't talk about it nearly as much as we could, but I just love this book for family faith formation. I think there's always more. I also, when I was a children's director, used this book for an intergenerational book study and like a book club, and it was so fun. We would get together, and this is something that you can do as a family. And we had a large roll of butcher paper, and we made a map of Narnia and the Arkenlands and all of the surrounding areas, and we would add to it. Each book we would add to the map, and it was something that we could all just do with our hands. We could play with, we could enjoy, we could be creative. And we had grandparents there. We had young kids there. We had people who had finished the reading. We had people who hadn't finished the reading. But we were all able to just spend time together chatting over this giant map. And then we had it to come back to month after month. And it was so fun to do that. And then so we would have some sense of where we were going in the book club and together as an intergenerational group, that this is something you can do with your family as well. You can also watch the movies, and we did that too. We had a big movie night at the end, and we watched different movies. So Netflix is coming out. Supposedly, I've been hearing this for years, but heard rumors that it's getting closer to Netflix coming out with some of the movies. They're hoping, I believe, to do all 7, which would be amazing. But there are several different versions of the movies. I used to love I think they're PBS ones from when I was a kid. And there's just so much beauty and imagination. So let's briefly go through the 7 books in Narnia. I'm going to pull out a quote for each one and then share some wondering questions that we can talk about with our kids as we read this book series. All right. So the first book. Okay. So there is some controversy here. If you're familiar with Narnia series, Chronicles of Narnia, you have your favorite way of reading. Some people swear that you have to read them by the publication dates. And other people believe that you should read them through the Narnian chronology, right? Chronologically through Narnian time. That's my favorite way to do it. I like to start with The Magician's Nephew, but if you go by published, then you would finish with The Magician's Nephew, I believe. This book, this copy, I will put the link in the show notes to this copy that I have. It does go chronologically from The Magician's Nephew, then to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, then The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and The Last Battle. So that's the order we're going to talk about them in today. So, the first quote, my favorite part in all of the books is the creation scene in The Magician's Nephew. And it says, the eastern sky changed from white to pink and from pink to gold. The voice rose and rose till all the air was shaking with it. And just as it swelled to the mightiest and most glorious sound it had yet produced, the sun arose. Diggory had never seen such a sun. Can you imagine? I know this is a pretend book, I know, but it is still good for our imaginations and for our playful side to be there at the creation in this book. Or I wonder what it might have felt like if we were able to watch the first creation from Genesis. If God had a DVD and could put it on, would he be singing the world into being? Or was he speaking? Or was he laughing? These are all things that you can wonder about with your kids. I wonder what parts of the book might be like Genesis. And I wonder what parts are totally different. So those are some questions that you can ask from The Magician's Nephew. All right. Then The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the next book in the series. And a very popular quote from that one is, who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you. All right. So that's talking about Aslan. Mr. and Mrs. Beaver are introducing the kids, the 4 Pevensies, to Aslan, the lion. And that whole chapter there, I just think is so beautiful. And I wonder, it makes me think about my own faith, my own beliefs. And I know he is good. But what does it mean that he's not safe? Is that true? Is it not true? I believe that emotionally he is safe. With him, is the safest we can feel, but it doesn't mean that a life with him is safe. And it also might not be that he is safe for everyone. And so wondering that with your kids, depending on their age, and just how might they describe God if they were introducing somebody new to him. Then my favorite book in the series is The Horse and His Boy. And there is a point at the end of the story where Shasta meets Aslan, the lion, but he doesn't know yet that it is a lion. He just hears his voice and says, Shasta was no longer afraid that the voice belonged to something that would eat him, nor that it was the voice of a ghost, but a new and different sort of trembling came over him. Yet he felt glad too. What an imaginative way to describe the awe that we have, that we will have in the presence of God, right? And think about those things. Do you think if you were the little boy in the story, Shasta, that you would be afraid of being eaten? There's this, you find that he's this lion, and yet you don't think that he's going to eat you. And there's this comfort, but also this fear and awe, and this gladness, he says. So I just think those are some beautiful things that we can wonder about with our kids. The next book in the series is Prince Caspian. And I love Lucy. I love Lucy. But she's probably my favorite character in the whole thing, even though her part, even though most of her story is in the three of the books that are not my favorite, she's still my favorite character. And so in Prince Caspian, there comes this point where she is alone with Aslan, and he says, "Welcome, child," he said. "Aslan," said Lucy, "you're bigger." "That is because you are older, little one," answered he. "Not because you are?" "I am not. But every year you grow, you will find me bigger." For a time, she was so happy that she did not want to speak, but Aslan spoke. So what I love about this, that we could wonder about together with our kids, that we can act out together, is this comfort, this intimacy. We can talk about that. Like, can we talk to God this way? The way Lucy does? And Lucy actually sees him. But if she didn't, could she still talk to him? Does she still talk to him? Can we talk to God even if we don't see him? Can we have this friendship that they have? And I also just love, as your kids get older, you can talk to them about what does it look like that our faith, that our God gets bigger as we grow older. Though he's not changing, but we are. And so we see more of who he is. And we've experienced more of what he has done. So I just think that's a really deep, rich question and conversation and wonderings that we could have while still being part of, this children's book. And it is technically considered a children's book series, but what I think one of the most brilliant things, and he said so many brilliant things, C.S. Lewis said, a children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story in the slightest. And I just think that's so true. He has so much, and I think this is one of the things that I love about this series, is that he is a scholar, this theologian, and yet he chooses to bring such richness and depth to these children's stories and spends so much time. And I mean, this is a thick book, and he wrote them, all 7 of them, within 6 years. That is a lot of time poured in a short amount of years for this number of books. And that he would use all of that creativity, that imagination, that richness, that depth into books that are called children's books. They're just so much more than that. All right. So that was in Prince Caspian. Voyage of the Dawn Treader. This is a quote from the end of the book. It says, "Come and have breakfast," said the lamb in its sweet, milky voice. And lamb is capitalized. Then they noticed for the first time that there was a fire lit on the grass and fish roasting on it. They sat down and ate the fish, hungry now for the first time in many days, and it was the most delicious food they had ever tasted. I love this. It, reminds us of the story after the resurrection of Jesus's disciples have gone back out on the boat to go fishing. They don't catch anything. And then they come in from fishing all night, right? And Jesus is there to serve them breakfast on the beach with fish. And I love that. And that Jesus doesn't provide them, the lamb doesn't provide them with just some food. It is the most delicious food they had ever tasted. Jesus wants for us to have this good, abundant, blessed life. And so you could wonder about what kind of fish was it? If you don't like fish, would the lamb know that? And would he have made them something different? What do you think they talked to the lamb about as they had breakfast? What is a lamb doing out there at the edge of the world? Who might the lamb be? Why did C.S. Lewis choose a lamb? Right? So we can wonder all these questions. And this is just a couple of sentences from the book. There's so much. All right. The next book is The Silver Chair. And here's the quote. "It never occurred to Jill to disbelieve the lion. No one who had seen his stern face could do that. And her mind suddenly made itself up. It was the worst thing she ever had to do, but she went forward to the stream, knelt down, and began scooping up water in her hand. It was the coldest, most refreshing water she had ever tasted. You didn't need to drink much of it, for it quenched your thirst at once." So this part of the story starts off with her scared, right? She's just meeting Azam for the first time, and he is a lion. Lions would be scary if they were not behind a cage at the zoo, right? And so she's scared. And yet she still believes the lion. Even when he is stern, she has done something she shouldn't have done. He is convicting her. He's holding her accountable for this. And so taking this sip of water, first she's turning her back on this big, scary, wild animal to drink from the stream. It seems pretty scary, right? You don't want to turn your back on something that's scary because you want to know what it's doing, where it is. And so she's got to turn her back and drink. And then when she does, it's the coldest, most refreshing water she had ever tasted. You didn't need to drink much of it, for it quenched your thirst at once. What do you think we could talk about Jesus as living water? What might that taste like? Do your kids like ice in their water? Do they like really cold water? What's the best water they've ever tasted? What animal would they be the most scared of? If a lion started talking to you, would you believe it? Wonder these things together. And finally, the last battle. Then I fell at his feet and thought, surely this is the hour of death. For the lion, who is worthy of all honor, will know that I have served Tash all my days and not him. Nevertheless, it is better to see the lion and die than to be Tisroc of the world and live and not to have seen him. But the glorious one bent down his golden head and touched my forehead with his tongue and said, Son, thou art welcome. Wow. A glorious one who is worthy of all honor. And so you can compare this to the psalm where it says better is a one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. And so what would be some big, really incredible thing to your kids that being in the presence of God is better than? Let them come up with it. It might be better than, a perfect day at the beach with all the ice cream they can eat and then getting to go on roller coasters. But the person who said this would have loved, it would be like the best job in the world for him to be Tisroc, right? It was like a king. And yet, meeting the lion momentarily and then dying is better than that could ever be. And so, how good is it to be in the presence of God and wondering that together? And then you can, if you want, dig into the next part of the story. And it says, where it goes on to talk about Aslan accepts these things that this guy has done for good, like these kind, loving things, accepts them as service to him, even though the man thought he was serving some other fake, not real God. And so with some older kids, preteens or older, even late elementary school, you can have that conversation about how do we come to God? And what about those verses that say at any time, where Jesus says that anytime you fed someone, you were feeding me. So having that kind of those conversations with your kids over the books is just so beautiful. Great connection to read together, great for their brains, great for their bodies. Reading together before bedtime is really calming and reduces anxiety. It creates a safety when you do it ritually, when you do it consistently. There's the safety in there that helps children to sleep better. And it's great for your relationships, great for their language and all. I mean, there's just so much wonder. Wonderful things that come from reading together. And then when you do it intentionally for the Lord, your family's faith and your family's faith and imagination can grow together. So I wonder, will you go to Narnia with your family anytime soon? I'd love for you to comment below or on the Spotify app if you listen there, and let me know which is your favorite book in the Narnia series. And then if you're not on Spotify, not watching this on YouTube, please leave a review on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, I guess it is. I'm an Android user, so I don't use it. But on Apple Podcasts, leave a review and let me know what was helpful from this episode. Thanks so much. And on behalf of God, thank you for loving and playing with his kids. Bye now.
Well, mamas, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me on Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'd love to keep the conversation going over on the socials. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you felt encouraged or equipped by today's show, do me a favor and leave a review. I can't wait to hear your story. Till next week, keep playing and pointing those littles to Christ.